Hello everyone, DonTheCrown here, and we're wrapping up the Diablo 4 first beta weekend. And I want to give you guys my initial thoughts and feelings on the beta. And honestly, it kind of gone through a little bit of roller coaster of feels with this. When we were first kind of going into the game, I wasn't really expecting too much. I was kind of like hyped a little bit. But then after lots of server issues and literally sitting in queue for hours on the first day, I honestly wasn't sure how much I was going to even get to play the game, let alone get to really explore and see what was going on. And yeah, now I gotta say I'm actually pretty hyped for Diablo 4, and I think it's going to be a really fun game. Let me just talk to you about that. And so, the server issues, first off, disappeared by like Saturday and Sunday. I haven't been in any queue. I've had some lags, I've had some crashes, but for the most part, not had much issue at all, which I'm pretty impressed with. Blizzard definitely stepped it up, and yeah, I haven't had much issues at all. In the game itself, visuals, the game looks great. I think it looks pretty dang amazing. They did a really great job with the atmosphere, the feeling, the cutscenes that are like in-game cutscenes, the storytelling, all fantastic. The sound design even is pretty amazing. Like the first time I was attacking on my barbarian, just the meaty thwonks of your weapon hitting enemies and stuff dying and exploding and lightning and fire, all sorts of stuff going on. It just feels really good to play the game. They definitely hit the sound design pretty well. Now, some of the volumes of some of the things are a little bit weird, and like it's a little bit weird too on the barbarian if you have the like cooldown. I'm not ready yet cooldown stuff going when you're like in the middle of combat, because it'll be like chop chop chop. Oh, I can't do that yet. It's just like it just feels really weird. I mean, I turned that stuff off, but for the most part, though, it just feels weird. Also, like some of the volume stuff is crazy. Like we're playing with like the Sork today, doing a whole bunch of lightning stuff, and the lightning is just incredibly loud for some reason. It's going to turn all the volumes down, so wouldn't drive me insane. And like overall, just feel like the atmosphere, storytelling, all feels really great. But I have one little nitpick, and that is I have no clue who our character is and why they're so willing just to like throw themselves into danger all the time. Because like the story starts off, micro spoiler, you're like freezing to death and you just barely find a village that can like you get warm in. And what's the first thing you do? You immediately volunteer to go clear out some like monsters. You don't like get warm, get any gear, nothing. You like literally get there and they're like, "Oh, monsters, let's go," and just right into the throat of danger. I don't understand it. And like through the story, it's like you're knowingly going up against Lilith. Uh you're not like misled into doing that in any way, shape, or form. You know who she is, and you're like kind of confident that you can take her. Like you might be a little upset about what has happened, but like where is this confidence coming from as this character? I think that they could polish that a little bit. I know in D3 they had a little bit of backstory for the characters, which was nice, but in Diablo 4 I just feel like, who the heck are you and why are you doing all this stuff? It just doesn't make sense. Next up, character feel. Characters all feel really, really great. All of them feel like unique and really inside of their particular like class fantasy. Like the sorceress is using all sorts of different elemental skills and just blasting off with all of those. The rogue is either like zipping around in melee like a crazy person, or is shooting their bow or crossbow from a distance and like blowing stuff up or throwing down traps, and all of that like feels pretty cool. And its melee feels different than the barbarian melee, where you're kind of like this unstoppable juggernaut in the middle of everything, just shouting and bashing, and it's pretty fun. And so each class just kind of feels unique and has its own feels. We'll have to see how Druid and Necromancer are, but just by looking at their skills in advance, kind of feel like they're gonna feel unique and cool in their own way as well. Right now I do feel like though the Barbarian is like a little little bit sluggish. Like you do get rolling a little bit faster, but like it does kind of take a while for you to kind of get up there. And like its class specific thing, the armory, doesn't really do all that much for you. Like there are some legendary powers where like when you swap your weapons, you get things like going berserk or getting more fortify, and that's cool, but like you basically just like cheese it to make it so that like, oh, my left click uses this weapon set, and then all of my damage skills use my best damage weapon. And so you're not really like switching weapons around all that much. You're just kind of like cheesing it, and it doesn't feel all that great. And weapon expertise in general just feels pretty meh. Like most of them are not that great, not something you really want. I know that there's this technique slot that we get at level 15, which we couldn't access in the beta because that zone isn't open, which I kind of wish they would like, you know, just give it to us so we could test it out to see what it's like. Because right now, expertise just seems pretty mediocre. The only real good thing about being a bard with all these weapons is that, well, that's more slots for the damage increases that weapons typically provide. So, Rogue, though, felt pretty bad until we hit like level 15, 16, and then I unlocked combo points and shadow imbuement, and it literally rocket ship to the moon. Like I went from, I don't know if I'm going to keep playing Rogue today, to I might be starting off as a Rogue. This is really, really fun. And so combo points pretty much work like you use your generator skill and up to 3 combo points. So if I use my generator skill 3 times, it's going to change how, or basically empower the next like spender skill. And so I was using penetrating shot, and it basically doubles the damage. So yeah, that was nice. And then you have shadow imbuement, which is pretty much going to be in every single build that wants to clear quickly. The next 2 like empowerable skills will debuff enemies and make them explode, like Path of Exile, like bleed pops, or explodey chest, or explodey bow or wand, or whatever. It feels amazing. And I even have the like penetrating shot legendary thing that makes the penetrating shot kind of branch out. And I was just shooting at 1 regular shot, and packs were just evaporating. And it just felt so much fun and very, very, very enjoyable. Before that, though, it felt pretty slow. Thork, on the other hand, kind of had the opposite problem. I started off at like level 1 and I felt incredibly powerful. As soon as I just started hitting stuff in general, it felt like we were just killing everything. And then as soon as we got chain lightning, the game just became stupid. I literally just hit any enemy and chain lightning bounces to 6 enemies or myself to keep bouncing, and it just clears everything. It's cleared like the entire screen, and it bounces like off the screen sometimes. You hit an enemy and it's just like yeet. I came across elites several times that were already at half health before I even saw them for the first time. And it's felt really dumb. But as we leveled up and the world leveled up, the damage of chain lightning kind of fell behind. Chat kind of warned me about this, but it kind of felt like we weren't really doing all that much damage. But we got Hydra, and Hydra basically just tears any elite apart. It's pretty dumb. Basically, you get like 3 little Hydra heads. They just spit at anything right away, and so you just drop it right on top of any elite. You can get up to 4 heads with one of these nodes. Yeah, 4 head. And yeah, they just eat things. And I don't even have the legendary power that allows you to have more than 1 Hydra. And just 1 Hydra alone is just nuts single target. Like, it just does so much work. I really don't know why it does so much damage. Kind of hoping that they maybe look at this a little bit, but yeah, it's insane. And I also played the other build. I made a video about it, the cooldown build, and that build also feels pretty insane. But besides that, like, some of the skills for Sorceress feel pretty bad. Like every single node here in the mastery section, I don't really know why you would use them per se, unless you're going for like crowd control from Blizzard. Meteor does less damage than Fireball unless they stand still. Flame Wall doesn't really do all that much damage unless they're standing inside of it for a long period of time. Ball Lightning is hot garbage. Like, it just does not do damage at all. It's super slow, and I tried everything to make this kind of work, and just not working, man. But besides that, every class I played had multiple builds that worked, and that was cool. I even like sometimes respect in the middle of the dungeon, just changed all my skills and slapped new stuff on and kept clearing. The fact that respecking a point literally just costs a tiny bit amount of gold felt pretty good. I was able to swap stuff out. Heck, I can even refund all my skill points all at once. You know, that's pretty affordable. This is like 2 high-level items vendored or something. And so we just, you know, could do that. And I definitely did that a few times, and that felt really good and made me like, feel okay with spending points just to test stuff out and adjust and figure out what's going to work best for my build. Next up, the Transmog system. I really am super excited about this. You can go and make your character look different ways. You can go and apply dyes to the different stuff, and you can apply dyes to the entire outfit if you want. Unfortunately, these pants are not currently unlocked. And that's the other problem. When you want to unlock something for this, you need to actually go to the blacksmith and scrap it. But some items, like the pants I'm wearing right now, have a legendary affix on them, which means if you want to get the legendary affix off of it and put it on another item, you need to go to the occultist and have them tear it off and destroy the item. So you can't get the legendary affix off of it and also get the appearance off of it at the same time, which I kind of just don't see why we have to scrap items in the first place. It kind of just like adds this extra layer of checklisting stuff, which just seems a pain in the butt. Just let us have the appearance if you pick it up, just like in Diablo 3. I think that that would work great. I also like the fact that your character can look cool, even like from the very beginning. You don't look like a homeless person unless you've paid like a whole bunch of money for Transmog. Seems pretty nice. Now let's talk about some of the stuff that I'm not very happy about. Overall, I kind of feel like a lot of the UI elements are pretty weak. So for some skills, if they have a duration, like for example, Flame Shield here has a 2-second duration. If I want to see where that duration is, it's going to be in this tiny little bar right here. It's going to be a little green bar as it ticks down. And so it's kind of hard to see, especially if you're like red-green colorblind like me. It's not all that obviously apparent, and it's just very small and just hard to tell what's going on per se. Also, like if you look at the bar here, you notice that we have a skill on left click. Yep. If you want to force left click to be always move, that means that you've also have to go and bind a brand new key to be interact as well. So if I want to go and like interact with the wardrobe here, I'd have to press my interact key. So if I made it like F or something, I'd have to F at the wardrobe or at the stash, or apparently to pick up items. I'm not doing that. That's really, really dumb. You should just let us have left click be move and interact and allow us to, I don't know, put 5 as another skill thing. It shouldn't really be all that hard. Also, when I saw this, I was like, okay, that just means we're gonna have to bind push like the force move to be mouse wheel like we do in Diablo 3. Nope, can't do that either. So that's, yeah, I don't know why they're doing it this way. It's really bad. There's also no button that's like designated for your ultimate. One of the things that's kind of like in the passive tree is that there is, you know, tiers of skills, and you can use as many skills from any tier that you want except the ultimate skills tier. So if I take Deep Freeze, for example, in Sorceress, I'm automatically locked out of taking Inferno or Unstable Currents. You can kind of see the X's on the skills as we hover over them. Like you see how the other 2 ones have X's, that means I can't get them. And so if you're going to lock us in to only use one skill, let us, I don't know, have a button for it, like R or something. Like, this feels very strange. And I definitely have had some builds where I'm like, I don't know if I want to use an ultimate at all, because I really need the buttons that I currently have to do stuff. So it just doesn't feel very good. Also, character sheet. So the normal character sheet here doesn't really have a lot of information. It has like our kind of average item level attack power, has our armor, which is kind of nice, has how much life we have, and the basic stats. But if we want to see more detail, it's kind of a pain in the butt to get to. You got to click this materials and stats button, and then you got to click on this over here to actually see your detailed stat sheet. But it gets worse. If I close this and I click this again, it's showing me my materials again. Why are, like, just make these two buttons. Why is it combined into one thing? I don't really care about this stuff, but I do want to see what my stats are if I'm adjusting my gear. It's just really strange to combine those two things. Like, put a button here that is like your materials, and then make it so that your detailed stats is its own button. Like, actually drives me insane. Now, they do a good job though with, when you're looking at what these stats are, with giving you a nice detailed information about that. So for example, like I saw damage versus crowd controlled. What does crowd controlled mean? Well, it tells you right there what that means, which I think is a really, really good thing. Next thing I don't like is that there's no overlay map in an ARPG, which is very strange. If you know what an overlay map is, normally when you press tab, basically the mini map kind of gets big and you can kind of see it as an overlay that's kind of see-through. But when you press tab in this game, you get the full map. This is what I would expect if I pressed M in a game to see the full map. Now, speaking of the full map, it's pretty big. Like, I'm excited to go and discover and explore and check out this giant thing, because like even just walking from here to there feels pretty decently long. So I can only imagine going across the entire world. It's gonna be fun to go and explore, and I'm excited there's mounts as well. But the fact that there's no overlay map kind of feels strange to me. Also, when you're comparing items for, like, let's say I want to compare my ring here with like one of my rings, it's always going to compare to whatever the lowest item power item of that slot I have is. So even though this ring is the first ring and this one's the second, since this one has a 289 item power, it's always going to be the one that's like up to be replaced next, which is kind of maddening. I do not like that at all. Also, if I see an item on the ground, I can't preview what the stats are if I hover over it. All I can tell is kind of what its name is and, you know, maybe what slot it is just by the shape of the image. That's it. That's kind of annoying too. Also, gems. There's a lot of gems in the game right now. We currently have, what, 7 different ones at the very first tier. They don't have their own storage in any way, so storing these is going to get really annoying really quick. And there's definitely more than one tier of gem, because you can craft them up already to the second tier. And I'm sure there's probably like a ton of tiers of gems. And so there's no storage in your main storage, there's no storage in your chest, and just overall there's just no storage. I don't feel like you have a lot of space to like do anything. Like, there's just not a lot. And like, this is cute and stuff here at the bottom, but like, if I had 3 more storage like rows, that would be much, much better. Yeah. So, items. Itemization in general in the game kind of feels pretty blah. And at first I was kind of like, itemization is okay, but the more I kind of thought about it, it was like, yeah, the itemization is pretty boring and pretty blah. It just doesn't really feel like your decisions are mattering too much. Like, you're just going to take the thing that gives you the most generic damage for the most part. Now at end game, there might be things where like a particular build is going for a particular stat, but there's just some things that are just going to obviously give you more damage. So things like damage to distant or to close enemies, depending on your build, you're going to go for. Vulnerable damage is pretty much always going to be really good as long as you have some way of consistently getting vulnerable. Personally, I like watching a really scary movie. It does help out. But if you look at the gems, for example, most of these don't really provide much damage if you socket them in. Or they like are very particular in getting all these conditionals in. So like Crude Emerald here, critical strike damage to vulnerable enemies. So it's not like critical strike damage, it's not increased damage to vulnerable enemies, it's like a very specific thing. You have to have vulnerable and you have to crit in order to get damage from this. And there's just lots of items that have these conditionals that feel kind of annoying. Like this legendary power, which increases my damage to vulnerable enemies while I have a barrier. It's just so particular. And this is a legendary power. It's like supposed to be cool. And it's just a generic damage increase. It doesn't really feel all that amazing per se. And the thing that really nailed the coffin for me here is that I noticed that when I switched builds from like my Chain Lightning Hydra Sork to cooldown spammer Sork, I didn't really change my gear at all. Like neither of those two builds I really had legendary stuff that really mattered, so I just didn't really change my gear. And yet the build still felt 100% fine. That's kind of okay, but like kind of feel like your gear should matter on your build a little bit more. You shouldn't be able to just switch to any build possible and really benefit. It just kind of felt pretty weird. Also, if you want to go and enchant your items, so let's say for example here that I wanted to change out that rank of Hydra to something else, I can't necessarily see what the options are like you can in Diablo 3. I have no idea what can roll. I have no idea what their rolls are. I don't know what's available at all. And I just get 2 random options, and then the price of re-rolling goes up. And it goes up, 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 up very, very quickly. So it kind of feels like if you get something that's like one thing away, if you don't roll it pretty quickly, you're probably just not going to use that item. And then if you're adding legendary aspect from just like the tome, if you don't roll a high roll on that, you're probably still not going to be using that item. So like for example here, like you can see this barrier has a range of 225 to 450. Hitting like a 300 here is very bad. So probably would want to restart on this item if you had crafted it this way, which just kind of feels boring and grindy for no good reason. Also, there's this thing called Lucky Hit in the game. This is on a lot of items. There's affixes that has this, or there are like ability stuff like this. And Lucky Hit is just something I detest. And the reason for this is because Lucky Hit kind of feels like it lies to you until you understand how it works. So this here reads, Frigid Breeze, cold damage against vulnerable enemies has a 20% chance to generate 5 mana. And so you would think off the bat, oh cool, this means that when I hit with cold damage against a vulnerable enemy, wow, so much conditional already, it would have a 20% chance to generate 5 mana. That's 20% times your lucky hit percentage. So if I'm hitting with Frostbolt, that's 30%. So that means I actually have a 6% chance with Frostbolt to generate the mana. Or over here, 25% lucky hit chance, or 20% lucky hit chance. Most of these lucky hit chances, for Sork at least, are actually pretty low. The one big exception to that is actually Hydra at 77, and Ice Blades for some reason has 71. There's no lucky hit anywhere really that has 100%. And I don't understand that. I don't understand why Lucky Hit is starting off like already low. Like, shouldn't it be like a baseline of 100%? And then some skills that are like really outstanding at multi-hitting or something have a lower lucky hit percentage. And then maybe some skills even have above 100%. If you're going to do this weird proc coefficient thing, it's going to force me to get out there and get a calculator to tell if something's going to proc or not. I just don't like this at all. I kind of wish that they would rework Lucky Hit, get rid of Lucky Hit, just do something with it. I mean, I'm glad that the proc coefficient stuff, if they're going to have it, is visible and we don't have to like data mine this, but it's just, yeah, I hate it, man. I don't like it at all. Yeah, and one last thing, if you want to search the skill tree, like I'm like, hey, I want to look for everything that has cooldown. I can't type whatever I want in the search. I have to go to a drop down here, and it only has things that are like predefined. It's kind of just like that. I mean, it does highlight, it does do an okay job there. If you make this big, it's kind of visible, but like I can't zoom out any farther than this. So I can't even look at the entirety of the tree. I can only look at one little section there. It's, you know, not good. Oh, and another thing, talk about Lucky Hit. Some people have seen what Overpower is. Overpower is like this blue damage proc that does a lot. And like, there's a lot of overpower damage that is available in the game. But generally, like Crude Ruby here, 12% overpower damage. That sounds awesome. This is at a tier 1 gem. Well, overpower chances right now chilling at 3%. Just 3% base. Now, I have looked at the Necromancer skill stuff, and it has some guaranteed overpower stuff. I think Druid does as well, but this really makes overpower not as good as you would originally think. And so, overpower, Lucky Hit, not necessarily a huge fan of these systems. But yeah, with all that put aside, I've been having a lot of fun with Diablo 4. It's been fun discovering builds, messing around with stuff. As someone who's played a lot of Path of Exile in the past, just being able to go and respec and put points into something else. And then, nah, I changed my mind. I want to switch back to something else. That's like so huge right there. Just be able to switch around builds, change stuff up. Like when I switched to the cooldown build, I literally did it like that and just like threw random stuff in to figure out what was going on. We like rotated through a bunch of skills, and yeah, it just felt really good to actually be able to feel like you can explore what's going on with your builds. And I hope that they keep the respec costs cheap so that you can do that when the game finally comes out. Hopefully this long rambly review did help. I'm really sorry. It's already been like almost 17 hours of streaming right now. So it's kind of you know, been a long day. I've had a lot of fun though. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the beta if you did. And if you didn't have a chance to check it out, there'll be a open beta for everybody this, I guess, upcoming weekend. And hopefully we'll see you there. We'll have the Necromancer and Druid classes available for that weekend. But let me know if there's anything that you'd like to know about Diablo 4 that you don't already know, or any sort of feedback or thoughts that you have in the comments. Share this with your friends and come by the stream. Thanks.